Paizo Blog Circuit. All right, here we go. And this is where the reason I particularly like this short story is that it introduces some of the NPCs you'll be dealing with, because you're all a member. A little bit of background, you're all members of the Circus of Wayward Wonders. It was a circus that a handful of years ago, many members of a larger, more draconian circus left when they disliked the practices of the previous circus leader. That old ringmaster, she was known to be cruel to the animals, devilishly demanding of her performers. And so eventually, about 2 years ago, many senior performers in her circus decided to leave. They all started their own circus, the Circus of Wayward Wonders, and for the past 2 years, they've been preparing, raising money and capital, and getting ready to put on their first show. Now, that time is almost upon us, and you will all be there. The first session will be opening night of the circus. But this is a really nice little short story that some of the Paizo staff wrote, and this takes place maybe a week or two before that first performance.
I think you're like 3 weeks ago.
All right, so here we go. Axel wasn't his real name. He'd wanted a name that echoed in the big top, something that sounded good in front of Amazing Aviary. So now he was Axel, of Axel's Amazing Aviary. No one knew who he'd been before he came to the Circus of Wayward Wonders. He was certain his new name would lead to his first real, actual performance. Except, so far, it hadn't. The ringmaster and circus manager went by the name Thunder, and like his namesake, he could silence the largest crowd, rolling over them as they hung on his every word. He was like that in person as well, pronouncing all of his words deliberately and forcefully. Axel thought Thunder was the most intense, serious, forthright person he'd ever met. This made it especially frustrating that Axel hadn't been able to get a straight answer out of the ringmaster as to whether or not he'd get to perform. Would Axel get to perform on opening night? Could he practice in one of the 3 rings beneath the big top? Could he see the order of the acts to find out where his bird act might fit best? Yes, Axel would say, but also no, and perhaps at other times, yes. Soon, the answer was given to him each and every time. Axel left every discussion feeling that he'd finally received the ringmaster's answer, but as soon as Thunder moved on to talk to someone else, Alex realized he hadn't gotten any answers at all. With little else to do, he'd turned back to his doves. In the corner of the big tent, he'd set up a lightweight stand in one of the darkened areas, out of the way of the genuine performers practicing their circus tricks. He gave a low whistle. One of the doves darted from its perch to take a wrapped pebble from his hand, swooping around Alex's head with it. Is that candy? Alex turned at the question, following the bird with his gaze as it swooped to drop the pebble in the outstretched hand of a young girl wearing a tight white leotard. She was no older than 12, not that much younger than Alex himself. But she held herself with the confidence of 1, 2, maybe 3 times as many years that old. No, sorry, it's just a rock, Axel said quickly. Then, as if the warning were necessary, he added, please don't eat it. He quickly glanced over her shoulder where her parents and 2 older siblings practiced their high-wire acrobatics routine. They didn't seem to notice him or his young friend. The girl, Advi Kanbali, Axel remembered, looked curiously at the prize the dove had delivered. Why would you wrap a rock up like candy? Oh, it'll be actual candy during a performance, but it's too expensive to use during training, Axel explained. I taught the doves to give them to children in the audience. I'm not in the audience, Advi huffed. I'm not a child, I'm a performer. One of the flying Kimbalis, although that was our name back in Escadar. We're the Featherfall 5 now. Papa says it's because we don't have to risk a hard fall ever again. You were in Escadar? Axel asked enthusiastically, wholly forgetting to maintain his facade of jaded professionalism. He saw Advi's face twist in a grimace and regretted sounding excited about it. Then you worked for her, Axel finished flatly. Mistress Dusklight, Advi said, slowly, nodding. The rest of her words came in a rush, as though they'd been bottled up for a long time. She's beautiful and graceful, and she knows more about the circus than even Professor K does, and he's ancient. But she's really a monster. Her circus isn't the delight of heavens. It's a prison, Or worse, an executioner's block. Nobody in the audience realizes she doesn't care if her performers are hurt, or worse, so long as she keeps up the sparkly illusions she's selling her crowds. I hated it, and I hated her. Papa always said we'd get away, and when a bunch of us decided to leave Dusklight Circus, we came here to start our own. Wayward Wonders. All of us. And now my family never has to perform without a safety net. I think it's so exciting. There's lots of new people joining too, like you, and it feels like, I don't know, like the start of something really important. Slightly, as his weight fell awkwardly on his left foot, Advi frowned. You're hurt. I bumped my leg last night. I'm fine. It's a snake bite. Axel looked over to where Mistress Eliza, the snake charmer, was poking around in the mouth of her enormous anaconda. Snake bite? He asked. Advi giggled. No, a snake bite. It's circus talk. It comes from the old stakes. We had to make do with parts we could scavenge, which meant use tent stakes. When those things get pounded into the dirt again and again, the tops kind of split off. If you don't watch when you're careful outside a tent at night, the frayed tops will cut your leg. Newcomers get them all the time. Take off your shoes. Wrap your ankle. I learned a lot about wrapping injuries in Mistress Dusklight's circus. The girl unwound one of her chalk-dusted hand wraps to use as a makeshift bandage. As Axel bent to roll up his trouser leg, Advi glanced at his doves, clustered together on their perch. Your bird rack is empty in the middle. That's where I go, explained Axel. The harness doesn't stand on the ground like that during a performance. It goes over my shoulders and under my cloak. That's how I hide the birds before unveiling them for the tricks. Your wire's too thick, interjected a flat-faced, simple-looking boy walking by with a metal spar over one shoulder. Hod can talk? Advi said, surprised. The boy scowled. Don't talk a lot. Doesn't mean I can't talk. Advi leaned to Axel, whispering, Hod's the assistant to the magician. Axel nodded. I've seen her around. Mordain the magician, right? Apparently she's really, really good. The acrobat rolled. Lucky to have her, that she should be the big number in the center ring on opening night, and so on. The Thunder isn't so sure. While Axel and Advi spoke amongst themselves of his mistress, Hod set down his spar and picked up Axel's cloak. He turned it inside out with a careful motion and pointed to several small tears. Wire's wrecking your lining. After a show or two, it'll tear and spoil the illusion. Try using thinner wire. Loop the ends. Thanks, Hod, Axel replied, genuinely grateful for the boy's advice. I'm lucky you stopped by. He paused, unsure whether to speak his next thought aloud. Is Mordain all that she says? Hod considered for a moment, his brow furrowing, then his face split into a large, oafish smile. At least she's got a good assistant. Advi laughed, slipping Axel's shoe back on and helping him to his feet. Hod's face grew suddenly solemn and picked up his spar. She told Thunder we already have Magician, we already have Animal Axe, so there's no place for you. Axel was torn between shock and outrage. No place? How is that even her decision? She's just as new to the circus as I am. I thought Thunder ran this show. Hod grinned. That's what Thunder told her too. Said he was already considering a place for you. No, that's good, interjected Advi. I'd heard he was going to say no because of how obvious it is you'd never performed in front of a crowd before. But I think you'll fit in well. We're all novices once, except for me. I was born on the high wire. I'd better get back to training then, Axel said, preparing to run through his trick again. I feel like this opening night's going to be the beginning of something wonderful. Yep. Hod turned back, smiling over his spar, looking intently at Axel's outstretched hand, and asked, "Is that a piece of candy?" So that's just kind of the opening scene. Do you want to reference that again or need to? Here's a link to it. Nice. But I just kind of wanted to set the story because those are many of the NPCs you'll be around